Hello, everyone. We'll just wait for a few minutes for everyone to join, and then we will start today's webinar. Okay, I think we're right on time, so I think we should start. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us today for our webinar. My name is Lana, and I'll be your moderator today. I work as a marketing manager at PRODYNA, based in Belgrade for almost 3 years. Today's topic will be the Migrate to GitHub Enterprise Cloud, and it will be presented by our CTO, Darko Krizic. Darko has over 30 years of experience in large-scale enterprise and system architecture. Please keep, Please keep in mind that during this webinar, you can post questions in the chat box, and we will cover them at the end of this session. Also, keep in mind that there is a small short delay, and now I will switch screens for the Darko to prepare his part. Just a second. Here it is. Just a moment. Darko, the stage is ready and you can begin. Thank you all.
Great, Lana, thank you very much. So, as already said, today we talk about migrating to GitHub Enterprise Cloud. And so a few words about PRODYNA. We are here to support navigating the digital future together. We are a company designing or building software, doing consulting, and also a power user of GitHub, and also a partner of GitHub, and sharing our experience. Just a few numbers about us. So we have about 400 employees. We are in 6 countries. We exist since 23 years. And about me, so I'm Darko Krizic. I'm one of the founders of PRODYNA. So I'm working at PRODYNA since the beginning. I'm CTO, and I have, as mentioned, 30 years of experience. So a little bit about the history at PRODYNA, because what we had is we migrated actually from Bitbucket to GitHub. So it's not only theory we are talking about. And in the history, we had Jira, we had Confluence, we had Bitbucket, we had Bamboo, but we also partly used Jenkins. And so we were using everything. So mainly Jira for issues and kind of, let's say, project management, Confluence for documentation, Bitbucket for the code, and Bamboo and Jenkins for pipelining. But we became unhappy over time due to various reasons. For example, the pricing. We had performance problems. By the way, we were hosting everything on premise, and so we were unhappy about the pricing, licensing, performance. And we also saw that there is not a lot of innovation in the solutions. I mean, Jira was really great, I don't know, 20 years ago when it came out, but it didn't really improve much over time. And others came up and had much sleeker solutions. So we were also looking what to do. And we were missing some features over time that we saw in other solutions. And since there was Atlassian came up and said, those on-premise solutions will no longer be supported, so you have to move to the Atlassian cloud. So we thought, hey, if we have to move to somewhere to another solution, let's evaluate the market and let's decide what to do. And as you can maybe guess, we moved to GitHub Enterprise Cloud. So we are now using We are not hosting anymore by ourselves. We could. There is GitHub Enterprise Server. No, we are using GitHub Enterprise Cloud. We moved all our stuff out of the whole Atlassian suite into GitHub. And yeah, what do we actually need? And what we need is possibly very similar to what you need. So we are doing projects for the customer. So we need a space where our developers are working. But we also have situations where we work not only for the customer, but with the customer. This simply means we are creating a space, a project. We are inviting the customer. We are collaborating. Sure, there are situations where the customer tells us, I have this development environment on my side, so we are using his environment, but very often we as a consulting company or the customer doesn't have this, so we use our environment, and this is now our standard environment is GitHub Enterprise. We have also private internal projects we are doing, so we also need some environment for doing this development, but also we are creating more and more open source components, so we need an environment where we can place this open source. We have the wish that our documentation is close to the code. What I mean with this is historically, when you used Bitbucket, your Confluence was somewhere else actually. And if there were no proper links in between, it was really hard for somebody who entered a project later to find where are the issues, where are the requirements, where's the documentation, where are the repositories. And so the wish is to have everything as close together as possible. Same with the issues. Jira is one system, Bitbucket is another system. They are not really tightly integrated, so it's preferably to have everything under one hood, which is exactly what GitHub offers to us. We want to have security. Security has various aspects, but what we mean is both ensure who has access to all the sources, and also do we have faulty code, wrong dependencies in our libraries, things like this. We are doing DevOps, DevSecOps. We need proper pipelines for doing this, and we also, and this is an important part, we need pipelines with human approval, right? So we are running processes, we are deploying to multiple stages, and we want humans to do the actual approval for the different stages. And this is something that some systems simply don't offer. And what is also important for a consulting company like PRODYNA is to have happy developers, and happy developers are demanding. So for example, one of the nicest features we rolled out is GitHub Copilot. So everybody in our company has a license of GitHub Copilot, which, well, the short summary of the feedback is I couldn't live without it anymore, right? So that's something that was a big advantage of going to GitHub. They have GitHub Copilot, and I'm not permitted to talk about what's coming up, but there will be much more in this direction, assistance to developers. But Copilot is here. Copilot sits in your IDE. It supports you. We would like to have a quick interface. Fast responding application, and also some command line tooling. People like me, I'm the command line guy. If I can open a pull request quickly by typing a command, I prefer this before I need to go to the right page and do some clicking. And the big advantage of GitHub is everything is an API, and everything is automatable, and there is very powerful command line tooling and a proper IDE integration, and also easy steps. So especially this thing, what do developers do? I have an issue, I want to open a branch. Once I push on this branch, I want to open a pull request. A pipeline runs, verifies, I merge it, and it's in my master branch, and then pipelines run and bring out the new version. And this is very, very well implemented in GitHub. So that makes our developer life much easier. And to have some overview, that's what I mentioned. I will show you later a screenshot what I mean. To have documentation, I give one link to a developer, one URL, he opens it and he sees everything he needs to know. So this is the project, here are the repositories, here is the documentation, here are the issues. He knows where to find. There is no looking around, sending out multiple links, not needed. So why GitHub? Well, GitHub used to be an independent company. They were bought by Microsoft. And well, in our case, we are both Microsoft partner, but also Microsoft customer. So we trust Microsoft. We are using, for example, Azure Active Directory, or newly called Entra ID. So we trust Microsoft anyway. So if we trust Microsoft, we surely can trust GitHub as well. The availability of GitHub Copilot and the availability of GitHub Advanced Security, both are options you can add on top of your GitHub Enterprise, but we have both of them additionally. As I mentioned, powerful pipelines. And what we really like is when you construct pipelines, you usually need to, repeat yourself. And therefore, GitHub Actions have those actions, which are repeatable components. And there is a huge marketplace with so many very powerful actions already available. And you basically just pick your actions and combine your pipelines out of them. And if they are not sufficient, you can simply create your own actions, which are fully reusable by everybody in the company or even worldwide. What is also really nice is there are permanent feature updates. So GitHub is permanently adding new features, improving things, and really nice. An important thing is GitHub has an API, and everything is controllable via API. So basically, when you interact with GitHub using the portal they have, you're just basically controlling the API. And what is important for us is there is also a Terraform provider. So I can do everything that GitHub offers. I can automate it, everything, creating organizations, creating teams, inviting users, creating repositories, applying policies, and creating templates, whatever. This can be fully automated. And this is important for us because this is an important puzzle piece for a proper platform engineering that we implement at our company or also on our customer side. Then there is a huge community around GitHub, very active projects, and also, it lives. It's reliable, meaning we seldom experience that something was not working. Sure, it happens there. It's not 100%, but it's 99 decimal something. What's important for migrating to GitHub is to understand the structure of things in GitHub, because there are some differences also to Bitbucket. For example, if you have an enterprise account, there is something called GitHub Enterprise. I will show you our GitHub Enterprise in a moment. And below that, you have one or multiple organizations. You can basically have an unlimited number of organizations. And below organizations, you have repositories where the actual code is held. And below repositories, you can have those environments which reflect, for example, deployment stages for your application. And as you can see, those things here on the right side are where they live. Like the enterprise controls the identity provider communication. So you can, for example, couple your enterprise with Azure AD, and you can also roll out enterprise-wide policies, which are automatically inherited by all organizations. Then you have your organizations, and here is where your users are, where you have something called a profile, I will show later. where your pipelines, actually reusable pipelines, live. So pipelines that can be reused inside of the whole organization. You can have organization-wide securities and variables. You can have secrets and variables enterprise-wide. And also there is a security mechanism that spans the whole organization, giving you overview which repositories are being scanned, something called coverage, and so on. And then also you can have organization-wide policies, which if allowed, override or define policies which are not specified on enterprise level. And then down here in the repositories, you find the issues, discussions, which is a special form of issues. Dependabot is here, a very nice mechanism for that detects outdated components, including Docker images, dependent libraries in many programming languages, but also GitHub Actions themselves are monitored here. External collaborators are users that are not part of your enterprise. And those users are invited here. So, for example, if you have a customer project and customers are participating, we can invite them on repository level. Then I have those releases, wiki, pipelines, packages, code, and secrets here as well. So code is clear, that's our actual Git. Packages is the so we have something built in that is basically something like Artifactory, so I can store Docker, a Maven, Node stuff directly in GitHub. I don't need additional services. And then down here in the environment, I have deployments and secrets. What's important to note is, and this is a very often complaint I hear, is many people are missing something like a project, and that's true. For example, in Bitbucket, you can group multiple repositories to something called project. And if you don't have this, and you only have one organization, you have a long list of repositories which belong to all the different projects. What we do at PRODYNA is we create for larger projects, we create a dedicated organization, put it into the enterprise. So this organization only contains repositories belonging to this organization. This is especially important if you're inviting externals. You ensure that they only can see your organization and not the remaining part. There might come up a feature in the future that will fix that. But for now, it's this structure here. Another approach that GitHub says, you can control by visibility that people who are participating in one project, they only see the repositories that belong to this project, or only the repositories belonging to the projects where they have access to. Basically, you're hiding things that they don't need to see. And therefore, you enter your main organization, you see only just a few repositories which are relevant for you, right? So that's what GitHub says. This is, by the way, how an organization looks like. That's an internal project that we have at PRODYNA. And for example, this is a profile page which we use for showing some overview of the deployment pipelines. So the different components, which versions have been released recently, and also which here are all our stages, like development, staging, production environment, which version is running where. Here you can see, for example, a component is outdated. Why? Because there is an approval required by somebody who is testing on staging environment and will release it to production once he's happy with this change. And that's, for example, this page is updated using a GitHub action permanently. Also, one note about pipelines is in opposite to Bitbucket, pipelines in GitHub are, I would say, in short, much more powerful because they can react on nearly everything. So issues, So you can, for example, if somebody creates an issue, you can react to it, you can change labels, and so on. So you can automate basically everything in GitHub using pipelines. So pipelines are not only here, sure, the main purpose is still building code and creating containers and deploying, but they can automate basically everything that you're doing. And that's what we consider a proper pipeline. So here I have the CI phase where the code is built, tested, the container is created, it's pushed into the container registry. And then I have the CD phase. I deploy this on the dev stage. I deploy this on the staging. And this here means it's waiting for an approval, right? So I can approve it, others can approve it. And once I approve it, the pipeline will continue. So that's a real proper CI/CD pipeline. And yeah, that's what we want to have. And that's probably what you would like to do. So when migrating, we identified the following steps might make sense. So number one, analyze the timeline and scope of the migration. Step number two would be to design and set up your GitHub Enterprise account. Step number three would be to have to prepare and do a dry run of your migration. And step number four, write your migration playbook. And step number five would run your production migration, right? So I will go into the steps a little bit deeper in a moment. What is important to understand is I'm actually changing from, I mean, the main users of the whole systems are developers. So developers are using, have code repositories, they might have open, need to commit, and what will change for them is they're now not pushing to Bitbucket anymore, they're now pushing to GitHub. And so it's important to align this internally, that developers need to push their changes. They can keep open the pull requests, but the code should be surely pushed into Bitbucket. Then the repositories are migrated and they are checking out the code from another origin again, and then continue working normally, right? But this needs to be well synchronized, planned in the teams. It doesn't have to be that all repositories are migrated the same moment. That's something that needs simply to be planned. But what shouldn't happen is that migration is started and developers are partly pushing to GitHub and partly pushing to Bitbucket. This simply shouldn't happen. So that's basically what needs to be considered in the actual migration. And yeah. So step one includes things like how soon do we need to complete the migration? Do we understand what will be migrated? Who will run the migration? What organizational structure do we need in GitHub? And this is that references to the picture I have shown you before. So are we creating one organization, multiple organizations? Are we restructuring something? So how do we map basically the whole infrastructure that we have in Bitbucket into GitHub? And we also need to be aware what content we are migrating, right? So clear, we have repositories, the code. That's one of the main assets, no doubt about this. But there are also, well, we have branches and we have pull requests. So we need to ensure that we not only have or we would like to preserve the whole repository as is. This means history, branches, pull requests, everything. We have secrets. Especially if you have something like a project that is doing something with external infrastructure, like cloud providers, external Docker repositories, you need to have something like secrets. And there are also pipelines. And then additionally things like protection rules, for example, like branch protection rules and other policies you might have. Let me quickly show you an example. I will run through. So I created a small repository here. So this is a Bitbucket now. Unfortunately, I don't have Bitbucket Enterprise. We used to have it, but we had shut it down. So this is a private instance, a free instance I use at Bitbucket, but just to demonstrate. And yeah, so I added some code here. This code also has a pipeline. So it's here. It's a very simple pipeline. It basically logs into a Docker repository. It does a build. So it creates a Docker image here, and it pushes this container image. It basically pushes it into Docker Hub, right? So here you can see is my repository. And yeah, so that's basically it. So a very simple pipeline, and something I personally like is doing. Technically it's a Go project, so it's written in Go. But as you can see in the pipeline, I'm not actually running Go here. Why? Because I'm using multi-stage Docker files. So I'm using this feature here. So I'm downloading a Go image. I let Go build it in the image, happens here. And then I'm basically just copying the binary into a fresh Alpine image. And yeah, so that's the actual image here. And this first part here is the build part of the multi-stage. And I like this approach because it also simplifies my pipelines, and I can test easier locally on my machine simply by running Docker, right? And this is an example repository I would like to migrate. I will show in a moment how this works, or one of the multiple approaches we can do. Back to the presentation. But what I wanted to show as well. So here, as I said, this pipeline here, or first, I have my code here. If I click into the directories, you will see if I go here, that's Go code, nothing fancy. I have my Docker, but I also have this Bitbucket pipeline here. And this pipeline is using secrets. And those secrets are now here in, I'm not using Bitbucket anymore, but they are somewhere here are integrations, deployments, repository variables, right? So here I have a secret called, a Docker username and Docker password, and this is a secret. And I need to migrate those as well, right? But those are key vaults. They actually don't allow me to read out the values, at least not using the API. So we must be aware if I'm using those secrets, there are some limitations. I probably need to recreate those secrets here once I move them to our GitHub. So the pipeline was running recently successfully. So if I go to my code, sorry, let's go here. And if I go to pipelines, and you see it was successfully running, and it successfully pushed my container image in the container registry. We saw it here, and that's fine. So I would like to migrate this. And what I can do here, so for example, I'm here in GitHub, and just to show you quickly a few details. So I'm logged in with my personal account. So I had this personal account, I don't know, very long time, many years, before PRODYNA started using GitHub. And that's one of the decisions you can do is, are you allowing users to continue using their private accounts? So, and that's something we did at PRODYNA. So we have now, so I'm in, as I said, I am myself. I log in to GitHub, but I have access to multiple organizations. And one of the organizations, I'm being invited to customer organizations, but there is also an organization called PRODYNA. By the way, I can also flip here. So there is some, so I can go to PRODYNA, and here is PRODYNA, and here I can view the organization page. Now, what technically happened is, well, I recently used it. So but we integrated this organization or the whole enterprise with our Azure AD. So this means in order to access this, I need to authenticate against the PRODYNA identity management, and this is an important feature that our employees can only access GitHub or the organizations of PRODYNA if they have a valid authentication against our Azure AD. And this means if some colleague leaves the company, if we turn off his Azure AD, he instantly is unable to access GitHub anymore. So that's this part of the security. So this means if I go to, for example, myself into the user list here, you see that there is an SSO identity linked, which is me. So this means I am actually only able to access it. Let me quickly revoke this. Yeah, this will invalidate my session. That's fine. And you see, once if I want to access it, let me go to the regular link here. So I'm trying to access the organization. I need first to authenticate against PRODYNA. I'm doing so. And here I'm back. So that's one of the ways of how to integrate existing GitHub users into an enterprise. And this allows us to, well, to all our employees have been invited with their private users. If they didn't have one, which was very unlikely, they created one. There is another model which creates users based on their Azure identity. So it's the email address of the company. So you would have then actually two users, one private if you have one, and one company. But we choose this middle way because many of our users are also active in different open source projects, and there is no need for me to permanently sign in and out in GitHub. I'm just using always my private account, and as I said, I'm also a member of this organization, but the organization ensures that I have a valid company account. So, and yeah, now let me migrate now this one repository here. So basically, as I said, I will go to the source page. So here is my source, and I can copy the URL. And I will now go to PRODYNA, and here there is I can create a repository, and you find this one here, it's import repository. So what I basically do is I just paste the URL of my repository, and now I need to enter a username. I will use this is my GitHub username as well. And what I also need to do is I need to create an app. Was it an app password? I always know it's a personal access token. So I need to go to my personal Bitbucket settings. I need to create, sorry, it's an app password. Yeah. So I will call it migration. And I need to give it access or I just need to give it read access, but I think to most of those. So I will tick those, and then I will click on create. So this is now my password. And what I basically need to do is I need to paste it here. Now I need to select the owner. So yeah, basically all organizations where I have enough permissions to create a new repository, I will use PRODYNA. I will configure sample. Yeah, sample is available. Otherwise, I would need to choose another name. I can select the visibility inside of PRODYNA. So it can be a private one. Internal means every employee can automatically see it. I will make it private one. It's for demonstration purposes only. And then I click on begin import. This is an asynchronous process. So you see it's preparing my new repository. And it's asynchronous because if you have a repository that has a lot of history, many open pull requests, feature or branches, many commits over the years, This can be a while, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever, but that's not a problem. As you can see, it runs in the background. There's also some queuing. I just reloaded. But what will happen is I'll receive an email. Okay, it started. So it will create an email, and this email is tells me that everything has been imported successfully. So let's wait a moment, or let's continue quickly on the slides. But yeah, what I said is, so it's not only, so we are now importing this part. Secrets are not migrated. Well, regarding the pipelines, I will go into this. Both offer pipelines, both are YAML files, but well, they're not really compatible. So I need to think about this. What is step 2 is design and set up your GitHub Enterprise account. There is billing and plan selection. So basically, GitHub has multiple pricing available, and at least a team brings some important features. But well, for serious users should go for this enterprise scope because of this feature, enterprise managed users, or this second feature is user provisioning through SCIM. So this means if I add a user to our Azure ID, it's automatically added to GitHub. As I said, we as PRODYNA are not using it. We are using this one. So we are verifying our users. And also things like that you can see here, enterprise accounts, centrally manage multiple organizations, and also GitHub Advanced Securities down here, and also those environment protection rules, which is allows us to create pipelines with human approvals, right? So that's something that needs to be set up. And then let me continue to the presentation. There is a feature called domain validation, which is if you are in an somewhere like here. If I click on PRODYNA, you see it's verified. You see this one because we've verified this PRODYNA.com, and everything gives a small badge to make it more official. Let me and as you can see here, this import is now complete, right? So it's you see there is now PRODYNA sample, and yeah, so basically everything is here. All my commits are here that I did. I actually copied or created this repository yesterday and fiddled around until the pipeline worked, simply to have something to demonstrate. But as you can see, so the history is here. I didn't have any pull requests, but if I had pull requests, they would be here. And my repository is now migrated, and that's nice. What surely doesn't work, I mean, this Bitbucket pipeline YAML is the file is here, but it does nothing. But I will show you in a moment what I needed to do to make the pipeline run again. And yeah, let's continue on the slides. So domain validation, authentication and security protocols, and the whole policy configuration. Policies can be applied, as already mentioned, on enterprise level and also on organization level. One example for a policy, can users create repositories by themselves? And another important policy is, can a user make a repository public by himself, right? Something like that. Those are policies that can be configured. And if they are not specified on enterprise level, they can be specified on organization level. But if they are on enterprise level, they are inherited and cannot be modified anymore. So you can enforce policies on the enterprise level. And there are also code security and analysis. Let me quickly show you how this looks like. So here, for example, if I click on security, I see how many open alerts I have, how many closed alerts I have. I can see how many of my repositories are protected with Dependabot, with code scanning, secret scanning. For example, I have some occurrences with some keys which had been in the repository. or some issues with code scanning, for example, a very powerful feature, by the way. So missing JWT signature check. So it really reads my code and understands, hey, this code is you're missing, or you need to do things differently. And then there's also an explanation how I should do it. And sometimes it creates a pull request, like this is how you should do it. And by the way, those things will improve massively over in the future without going too much into detail. So much more automation here to be expected. So back to the presentation. Roles and permission schemas, right? Like ownerships, administrators. You can set up teams and then the permissions through repositories, and your user onboarding process. There are, as I said, it can be done manually. It can be fully automated. Everybody will be invited automatically. There are multiple options. There are also, two features that can be added. Number one is GitHub Copilot. Second is this GitHub Advanced Security that you just saw, like really deep scanning of code and proactive warnings. Those features are additional, come on top, and you can decide if they make sense for you. And GitHub brings a lot of features. And as I started, you remember I said, hey, we had Jira here, we had Confluence there. Everything is in one place. This Dependabot, dependency management, packages. I can store my packages, Docker, Node, or NPM, Maven, everything directly in GitHub. So I have something like Artifactory or Nexus built in. I have a wiki. So wiki is basically what Confluence offers. I have my issues and many more. The list is much longer. There's also one decision that I mentioned already. So do I integrate into some identity management, or do I integrate only using SAML, or the users use their private user accounts and I validate against identity management, or do I integrate my identity management and basically create users in GitHub based on my identity management? So this decision needs to be done. And also, as I told you, I can go into github.com, I have owner permissions, and I can click everything, policies, rules. But an alternative is GitHub is fully controllable via API. And we could configure GitHub fully automatic using Terraform, right? Infrastructure as code. We can use Terraform. There is a Terraform provider, or we could use something like Pulumi. And that's exactly what we do. So we are also using Terraform for creating new organizations and roll out configurations, policies, adding the security structure, and then local admin just needs to add the users to the according teams, and everything else is already set up. No need to do anything further. Also a decision about private runners. So private runners are, or if you run pipelines, you have runners. There's a pool of publicly available runners at GitHub. And but some, they have Linux, Windows, macOS, but sometimes you need private runners. Why? If you're doing some security environments, you have private networking. You cannot access into this environment from outside, so you have to deploy a runner running in your private networking. So this runner is technically talking to GitHub. So you don't have a network communication in, only a network communication out. And those runners can have special configurations. This is a feature that Bitbucket truly has as well. But I mention it because be aware that you might to need to recreate your runners to also have GitHub runners once you migrate to GitHub if you have requirements like this. Yeah, private networking. Then step 3 would be prepare and dry run the migration. So we need to, as I said, this migration assistant that I triggered manually is on a repository level. So what I basically need to do is to do this for all my repositories. I cannot, unfortunately, do this on a whole project level, but I can automate it. As I mentioned, everything in GitHub is an API. And here is a well-documented REST API, which is the endpoint for source imports. It's well documented. So what I basically could do is create a script and loop over all my given, actually go connect to Bitbucket, read out the list of my projects, my repositories, and trigger the import and monitor until my import is done. Alternatively, there are command line tools supported by GitHub, which exactly also support this. And there are third-party solutions, which or others have written scripts which you simply can run, which automate this using this REST API, right? But for demonstration purposes, what technically happens is you point to your original provider, it reads out all it can find, and it migrates and preserves all your information. So we have this GitHub Enterprise importer, or a script that triggers the API, or what you also can do, if, for example, a developer accidentally didn't push after migration, or so he has something left, Git has this built in, so you can actually just reconnect your checked out repository against the new GitHub repository and continue pushing against new repositories. So developers actually don't have to recheck out everything. They just change the origin, right? It's, as I said, it's a default Git feature, existed since ever. Yeah, pipelines. Now, there is a tool which is called GitHub Actions Importer, and or you can manually rewrite. This GitHub Actions importer is relatively new, and I tried to demonstrate it, but it requires Bitbucket Enterprise, because in order you need to create an access token, and this is only available on the Enterprise, so I couldn't demonstrate it. But anyway, I favor taking a look on the existing pipelines and just rewrite them. By the way, what I also just tried recently is, for example, I went to OpenAI. I asked, can you please convert this given pipeline to a GitHub pipeline? And yeah, here is the result. You see, it's and this worked instantly. So that's also a very interesting option that can be considered. But as you can see, it's also running basically Docker login, Docker build, Docker push. It's actually mimicking exactly what I do here. But as I mentioned before, GitHub Actions have those actions which are more powerful components, and therefore sometimes it makes sense to consider to, well, manually change a few things. I will show you. So I merged this repository before in my private, so I need to switch here, and then I need to go to here. Yeah. So here, this is a copy of the Bitbucket. It was merged a few hours ago. So this is basically the original pipeline, which is now dead file. I could even remove. And in GitHub, everything lives in a .github directory. So number one, which makes sense anyways, is to add something like a dependabot file, which monitors, in my case, Go, Docker, and also the GitHub Actions. And once I added this, it instantly created 7 pull requests, updating like everything, libraries in Go and Docker images. So this is really nice. And dependabot, by the way, is one of the features that we really like and was a big plus for GitHub. And then inside of .github, there is a workflows directory, and this workflows directory contains this YAML file, and this is now the action that I have written. And here I'm using, you see, the concept of GitHub Actions is that you have actions which are doing the required steps. For example, do the checkout. Then there, for logging into Docker, there is a Docker login action, which in this case, and I stopped using the Docker hub because I wanted to demonstrate that I can also push into GitHub directly. And then there is also an action that exists, which is which does a build, push, and push action. So I just need to point it to my Docker file. Yes, push, and please use those tags, and that's it. And by the way, GitHub Action Marketplace, it's huge, right? So if you're developing pipelines, it's a huge list of things you can find, which makes pipeline development much easier, right? So if you go to something like issues, whatever translator, you find an example how to use it, and so on. And all of those things, by the way, are open source projects hosted in GitHub. And so if you have, you can write issues, you can create pull requests. So this is really what I mean with a living community. And back to the pipeline. Let me just find, yeah. And yeah, so I created this pipeline. As you can see, there is not much code needed, and this was running. So you see here, and by the way, it also complains about outdated components, but I would need to just add the pull requests here. And yeah, the action was in the end was successful. So it did this build and push image, and if I go here on the main page, you see there is a package, and this package is now my Git, my Docker container. So it's here. I could now, you see the tags are here, latest and 1.0, the README is taken over. So yeah, that's it. That was everything I needed. If I would like to push to the other container registry, I would go to settings. I would need to add secrets for the actions. So I have the secrets and variables here. So I would need to add something like Docker username, Docker password, change my pipeline, and I would again be pushing to the original container registry. But as I said, why do I need some external registry if it's built in? So let's use it. And yeah, so pipelines, as I said, they are much more powerful. Even if I migrate them, considering to rewrite them might be also a viable option, and reorganize. And you can also create pipelines which are fully reusable, because many projects are doing basically the same and just need to call another workflow with 3-4 parameters, and you just have to maintain one pipeline which is reusable organization-wide, right? That's something really powerful. Yeah, step 4 would be write your own migration playbook, minimize impact for developers, ensure users can continue quickly, like yeah, push, check out, continue working. And then comes the actual production migration. So migrate all repository, and then yeah, start using GitHub Enterprise. What surely needs to be done is also to migrate or re-implement the pipelines. And in the end, after everything is done, for example, this is an overview page that is permanently updated, which gives us an overview of our external collaborators, because they had been invited, mostly customers, and we are monitoring because they consume a seat, they cost us money, and we just want to ensure if a user leaves PRODYNA, he is also removed from GitHub automatically. And since they had been, those external collaborators have been invited manually, we also need to monitor them manually, because the project manager needs to decide, do we still need this one user, or can he be removed, right? And so you need to have something like a housekeeping, simply to not make your cost explode. And that's it. Are there any questions? I see we have about 7 minutes left.
And so far, we don't have any questions, but let's give a few moments to people. Maybe somebody will reach out.
Yes. Yeah, we must be aware that there is this short delay when we talk until the participant hear it. So let's wait a little bit. But I hope it was clear what needs to be considered when migrating. There are some steps involved which can be automated very well, but not 100%. Yeah, I demonstrated it works, and yeah, this actual import can take a much longer time if it's a big project with a lot of history, but worked well here. I can revoke this. Okay, no question yet?
No, not so far.
Good. Yeah, I would then say if there are no questions,
Okay.
You can do the closing.
Yes, I will switch the screen right now. Okay. Thank you very much, Darko, for this presentation. And if anyone wants to reach us out and have some additional questions, let's see. Oh, we have 2 questions actually, Darko.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay. The first one is, how long did it take to migrate from Bitbucket to GitHub from James?
Well, I think what we did at PRODYNA is we didn't move everything instantly. So we had Bitbucket still running, and we had already GitHub Enterprise ready, and we told all projects to migrate as soon as possible. And each project was so the actual technical migration was always, I don't know, 1 to 3 hours for one project. And the overall time span was, I don't know, 4 months, I think, until the last project also find some, project stress, but they finally also then migrated. So as I said, technical is always a few hours downtime, or a few hours developers commit, don't change anything, scripts run, pipelines are reconfigured. So we also had some experts running around and taking a look on the pipelines, also developing or reusing pipelines as much as possible, cleaning up. We also had a case where we converted multiple repositories to a monorepo and things like this. But usually hours for single projects, but overall multiple months, but simply due to projects being too busy to do it right now. And second question?
Second question is, what pricing options are available for GitHub Enterprise Cloud, and how does the pricing structure work for teams with external collaborators?
Yeah, it's short answer is this is the cost of one seat. It's currently some off, but it is usually, I remember it's $21. So this means you pay this cost for, it's a seat. A seat is consumed in the moment when a user is added to any repository of any organization. Independent if he is a normal employee of PRODYNA or if it's a customer. So we actually pay for every employee who has access to GitHub. I mean, not really everybody is a developer, but most people are. Plus the invited customers. But on the other hand, but it doesn't matter how many organizations and how many repositories you're accessing, right? So if somebody is in different projects, it doesn't change. You still consume just one seat, right? So that's so what you need to consider is the number of your developers plus the number of developers you're inviting from external, though they all consume one seat each, and this is the monthly sum you have to pay to GitHub.
Okay, those were all the questions we had so far. So I will take the screen and just do the closing. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Darko, for this presentation.
You're welcome.
And yes, and if you have any additional questions, please reach us out at info@PRODYNA or visit our website. We're here to provide support, and I wish you all a lovely day and see you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.